Which leads us to conclude that Mr. Justice could have left that bloody writing. Oh, couldn't have led. I thought I read that wrong. Why should we believe the defendant's claim that the case was in a different position? She's obviously lying. The fact that the case was moved after the assault on Mr. Justice is proved by more than Miss Wood's testimony alone. Yeah, the picture. What? And where is this proof you're talking about? It's right here in the crime photo. I'm keen to see this proof myself, Mr. Wright. What in this photo indicates that the transport case was moved after the assault? I mean, I could literally just boof. You can see it, right over his bandages too. Poor guy. Please take a look at the mark that runs over Mr. Justice's bandages, here. I see it, but what is it? This mark was made by one of the casters from the transport case carrying the bomb. As the case was moved, it ran over his bandages. In other words, the transport case was originally to the right of Mr. Justice. Then after Mr. Justice was assaulted, the transport case was moved. What? Just as Miss Wood said, the case was covering the writing at the time of the assault. Therefore, it was impossible for Mr. Justice to have left that message in blood. No! Suck it, Pain. You did it, boss. It was a real nail-biter, but you pulled it off. Yep, that should bring down the prosecution's claim like a house of cards. Order in the court. Mr. Wright, that was a very clever deduction. Why, thank you, Your Honour. Oh, it was nothing, Your Honour. Nothing but pure genius. Take that. Boss, I'm sensing a definite smug and braggy vibe coming off of you. I have just one question, Mr. Wright. Yes, Your Honour? If Mr. Justice didn't leave this message in blood, then who did? Huh? What? Oh! Well... Looks like I should have taken that train of thought through to the last station. Well, well. I've heard a lot about this. So, this is Mr. Wright's famous bluffing technique, is it? Ah, this feeling. It brings back memories of the old days. Back when you carved out a name for yourself by bluffing your way through thick and thin. Gee, Mr. Wright, the judge kind of makes you sound no better than a 2-bit conman. You made your argument with such confidence, Mr. Wright. Now I'd like to hear your answers with just as much confidence. Hey, until the judge asked the question, you didn't catch on either, Buster. What now, boss? I hope you didn't bluff your way into a corner. Think, Phoenix, think. There must be a way through this. I have to dig my way to the truth somehow. Who could have written that message in blood? It wasn't Apollo. I don't think there was enough blood to have written all that. I mean, technically it would have been the culprit. So... I mean, the culprit would have writ it, but the blood came from someone else. If it wasn't Apollo, who could have left the bloody message? Well, funnily enough, courtroom number 4 is where someone was killed, and there was a lot of blood. So it was Candice. Although I know they're gonna ask, like, how did a dead person write a message? So Detective is heading up the investigation into the bombing incident. Whoosh! To be honest, I don't actually have any real proof of this. But I've come this far. There's no turning back now. Besides Apollo, there was one more person who shed blood at the crime scene. A person who shed blood? You don't mean... Oh, but I do. I believe it was Candy's arm who left behind this message in blood. What? I know they're gonna ask, how would a dead person write this? But it's not her that actually did it, it was just her blood that was used. What? Detective Arm? Are you sure you know what you're doing here? Not really. What kind of ridiculous assertion is that? If you had said the attacker left the message to throw people off, it might have made sense. At first glance, that would seem to be the most reasonable explanation. However, Apollo didn't shed enough blood to write such an extensive message. Uh-oh. Ah, I see. Even the photo makes it clear that there wasn't enough blood to write all those letters. The Mr. Justice did survive. I suppose he didn't bleed very extensively in that case. But why would Detective Arm write the defendant's name? There is no connection between the two whatsoever. What if it wasn't? I didn't even know the lady who was killed. I admit the investigation didn't turn up any connection between the victim and defendant. To be fair, my past experience with other Ace Attorney games makes, like, catching on to certain things a lot easier. Because what I'm thinking is, what if something else was written, but that incriminated the actual person? And so they made it look like it was a different word entirely? Because that's happened in one case before, that I know of. The final case for the first game. So they had never even met each other. Whoops. That's very true. Well then, let's see. Then maybe the intended meaning of the message is not what it appears to be. There it is. The intended meaning. Not what it appears to be? Maybe the message was not intended to be Woods. Coming from you, that's quite the bold statement, Mr. Wright. You wish to assert that this bloody writing could have some other meaning. Yes, Your Honor. For something I pulled out of a wormhole, it could turn out to be true, right? Of course he has something to say. It clearly says Woods, as anyone can plainly see. What other meaning could it possibly have? But Candace Arm was a detective. Maybe Woods only means something to the police. Like a police scanner code, for example. I didn't think of that. You may have tricked His Honor, but you'll never get the best of me. I have a thing for studying on the weekends, as you may have already guessed. There is no such radio code as Woods in this state, dear Mr. Wright. Is that a fact? Don't look at me. I know as much as you do about police codes. Well, shit. Enough of this. I was quite taken with the defense's new theory. But if they can't substantiate it with anything, then I must end things here. No, please wait, Your Honor. Very well, but before we discuss this theory any further, I demand a plausible explanation. So, Mr. Wright, what is the true meaning of the bloody writing? Well, I believe it's... And no stalling. If you can't come up with an answer quickly, I will declare this discussion officially over. I'm in trouble now. What other meaning could it have besides the obvious one? Maybe it means something in another language? Or maybe it's a code? Wow, could they give it away? And could they make it any more obvious? Think, Phoenix, you can do this. Which piece of evidence will tell us what the word Woods really mean? Wait, so if I actually look at... blue. I don't want to look at that one. There it is. The only thing I can see is 5. Oh! Ah, yeah. It's definitely the code. L10015. Yeah. So L and 1 were put together to make Woods. Was put together to make W. 0 and O look pretty much the same. The 1 is what was made into a D, and then S. was a 5. Does the S look like a 5 though? Actually, to be fair, it does. Yeah, that is a 5. Oh, it actually has another one. You can barely see it because there's a piece of rubble or there's a thing missing. But yeah, that's actually the code. I never even noticed the final part of it. So that would have been an R, but it's covered up by something. Ah! Well, there we go. Easy. Oh wait, I nearly presented the wrong thing. Present the bomb transport case. The bomb transport case? I've about had it up to here with your shenanigans, Mr. Wright. Take a look at the numbers on this case, Your Honor. L10015R. Doesn't this string look vaguely similar? Yet familiar? I can't read. My god. L100. What does that have to do with anything? What could those numbers possibly have to do with the case at hand? Oh, you'll find out. Now, please take a look at the bloody writing shown in the crime photo. Oh, I think I see it. That a girl. That's 1 on my side. It says Woods. Or you could say it's a horse of a different colour, Your Honour. The first character isn't a W. It's actually an L and a 1. The next two are zeros. Oh my goodness. The true meaning behind the bloody writing isn't Miss Wood's name. It's the number engraved on this bomb transport case. What are you talking about? The next part doesn't make any sense. The next number is a 1, but the bloody writing says D. Yeah, it's quite easy to turn a 1 into a D. But the number on the case and the bloody writing can be made to match up quite easily. This is how the numbers on the transport case can be made to match the bloody writing. Read it backwards. No, erase 2 lines. The one between the L and the 1, and then the 1 from the D. And you have the code. Please erase the third downward stroke of the W and the curved part of the D. And there it is. Oh, would you look at that? L-I-O-O-I-S. No, Your Honour, it isn't meant to be read as a word. It's the number L10015, which, if you take away the final R, is the exact same number that's on the bomb transport case. Erase 2 lines and they match up, you say? Well, I can change anything into anything else simply by erasing 2 lines. What if we erase 2 lines from your name? Would you be happy as Mr. Rye? Well, would you, Mr. Rye? The only right spelling is right. Okay, I'm doing pretty well here. And I think I've drawn the right conclusion. Detective Arm's real message to us is the bomb transport case number. Your Honour, the 2 lines were added by the real culprit to intentionally mislead people. What? That was obvious. The original message Detective Arm left behind was the transport case number. But whoever assaulted Apollo changed the message. If you're right, boss, then what do you suppose Detective Arm was trying to tell us? Good question. What does this number represent? Do you see this number here? That is my identification number. And again, they're making it really obvious. Candy Sarm lost her life in the courtroom bombing. Her dying message could only have had one purpose. Oh, so she didn't die straight away. To point out the true culprit. No. To tell us the name of the one responsible for the bombing. Oh yeah. Well, don't keep us in suspense, Mr. Wright. Tell us who she was trying to name. The culprit that the victim was trying to identify is none other than a police bomb specialist. He was in charge of handling the bomb that exploded in the courtroom. It's Ted Tonate. The defense wishes to indict Mr. Ted Tonate on the charge of the courtroom bombing. Oh! Ted Tonate? Apparently, disabling bombs isn't Mr. Tonate's only specialty. Somehow the victim must have realised that he was the bomber. So when she was caught in the blast, she left his bomb transport case number as her dying message. She used Mr. Tonate's own ID number to finger him for the crime. Why would anyone go out of their way to write an ID number? Wouldn't they simply write the person's name? He's got a good point there. What if she didn't know his name? What do you have to say to that, Mr. Wright? Only Detective Arm would know the answer to that, but allow me to offer a theory. Perhaps Detective Arm couldn't recall Mr. Tonate's name in the heat of the moment. As I recall, this was the first meeting between the two. It's entirely possible they wouldn't have been familiar with each other. Or maybe using the ID number was a way to hide its true meaning from the real culprit, thus lowering the odds that they would erase the bloody writing. But no matter the reason, or what the reason, the important thing is the meaning behind her message. The fact remains that she wrote Mr. Tonate's ID number. I've got the bloody hiccups. Now just one moment here. There hasn't been any proof yet that it was indeed Detective Arm who wrote it. The bloody writing wasn't found during the investigation after the blast. If Detective Arm had left the message, it should have been found at the time, but it wasn't because the case was on top of it, you dunce. Objection! Jeez, how stupid is this guy? So naturally Mr. Tonate hid it before anyone could discover it. And there's a simple explanation for how he was able to do so. What? Tonate was able to cover the message up because he was the first to find the body. Yeah, the case covered it. He was also the first on the scene, and the first to find the body, so there was no one else there, which means he moved the case at that point. First person to discover the bloody writing was Mr. Tonate himself. I was the first one on the scene after the explosion. I went there to ensure safety, but I ended up discovering a dead body. When Mr. Tonate saw that the victim had written his ID number, he used the bomb transport case to cover up the bloody writing as a stopgap measure. Oh, so that's why the message in blood was under the transport case. He didn't have enough time to try and scrub away the writing. If he didn't report the body right away, he would look suspicious. So those letters lived on to serve another function, when Mr. Tonate used them in another incident. Ah, the assault on Mr. Justice. Exactly. Mr. Tonate hit upon a plan to use the bloody writing for his own purpose, or purposes. So he didn't clean it away, instead he made it look like Mr. Justice wrote it. By adding 2 lines to the writing that Detective Arm left behind, he transformed it into words. He changed the meaning of the message. He made it look like Mr. Justice was accusing Miss Woods of the attack. So that means the only person who could have altered the bloody writing was the courtroom bomber, who was the same person that assaulted Mr. Justice. And that person is Ted Tonate. Oh! I thought his hair flew off for a second then. Alright. Order in the court. Order, I say. Looks like we'll have to hear from the bomb specialist himself. Mr. Payne, please have Mr. Tonate take the witness stand. Yes, Your Honor. That was great, Mr. Wright. Just doing what I do best, which is flying by the seat of my pants. Dismantling the case is yours. Do you think you can handle it? I look forward to seeing you try. That seemed like it was not a threat, but a challenge. It's like, can you figure out I was the culprit? I finally drawn Mr. Tonate back onto the witness stand. Looks like you'll get your wish. I nearly called him Google Man. Goggle Man. Now watch me take your lies apart. Okay. Mr. Tonate, I'm afraid we have a few more questions for you. I understand the situation, Your Honor. I was keeping a close eye on the proceedings from the gallery. The allegations are all laughable. I wouldn't be laughing if I were you, Mr. Tonate. The message in blood matches your ID number. The same ID number that is there on that bomb transport case. Such a far-fetched theory, no better than a tangled ball of wires. I'll have them untangled for you in no time at all. You were the first person on the scene after Detective Armlock left her message in blood. You were the only one who could have hidden the writing, and then used it again later. I see times two, but then let me ask you. Do you have any proof that Detective Arm wrote that message? That's a very good question. Well, do you, Mr. Wright? The best way to prove that Detective Arm wrote that message is to analyze the DNA. It's written in blood. Your Honor, I request that a DNA test be performed on the blood itself. Once we know whose it is, it will be obvious as to who wrote the message. Very well. Bailiff, please put in a request for a DNA test with the forensics team. Yes, Your Honor. It'll be some time before we have the results of the analysis. Until then, let's hear more from the witness. I would like nothing more, Your Honor. I want the court to hear how ridiculous the defense's theory is. Not how ridiculous it sounds. Okay. After the explosion. I admit I was the first one on the scene after the explosion, but there was no bloody writing there at the time. Anyway, there is no way Detective Arm could have written it. She struck her head on rubble and died near the courtroom entrance. She was too far away from where the bloody message was found. So you're saying that the victim's body was nowhere near where the writing was? He doesn't bullshit his way through, but he does bluff at points. Gets through by the skin of his teeth. Like, literally every case, it gets to a point where it's like, there's no way I can come back from this, and then something happens and it's like, I can come back from this. It's great. Yeah, her body could have been moved. Precisely. It is as plain as day that she could not have written it. Did I ever actually look at the photo? I need to analyse a few things. So the autopsy says she died impact with a flat object. Oh, we don't actually have... Oh! Wait, I thought we had her photo. It's true that the body was discovered near the entrance to the courtroom. Oh, right, now we can see it. Right, please have a look at this crime scene photo. Oh! I see a contradiction. That's a lot of blood. God, it's a good job I actually just read this. Where the blood is on that, it's pointed. But this is cause of death. Trauma to back of head caused by impact with a flat object. That is not flat. That's a point. Interesting. So as you can see, there is blood on the rubble near the victim's body. She must have died after hitting her head there. There's a courtroom bombing photo added to the court record. Crime scene photo of the aftermath of the courtroom number 4. And the victim. Yeah, so that's a contradiction. Which means she died elsewhere and was moved away from where the writing was written, I suppose. I see. Alright then, Mr. Wright. You may cross-examine the witness. Do you have what it takes to take my infallible testimony apart? Oh, you bet I do. So, after the explosion. So I admit I was the first one on the scene after the explosion. Yeah, I was gonna press everything until I get to where I present. So why were you the first person on the scene? To secure the area. It is regulation for a bomb disposal specialist to enter first. In other words, you had the opportunity to alter the bloody writing then, didn't you? Well... Mr. Wright, please don't interrupt. Mr. Tonate is about to give testimony that will show just how wrong your reasoning is. Darn. I think he was just about to say something interesting too. When I went in and saw the aftermath, well, it was quite the disaster. There was no bloody writing there at the time. You were able to tell this even with those goggles on? With these goggles, there is no way I could have missed something like that. I can see quite well with them. In fact, I can see every hair on your spiky head. Oh, you have a few grey hairs, Mr. Wright. What? Oh, Mr. Wright, you're always working so hard keeping our office together. Wait a minute, I don't have any grey hairs. Just kidding. Wow. I object to the witness's attempt to prematurely give me grey hair. Mr. Tonate, this court frowns upon untoward comments on a person's hair or lack thereof. I'm sensing a great sorrow coming from the judge. Yeah, me too. My apologies, Your Honour. May I please continue my testimony? Oh, that was great. I love just pressing statements, because they always have flavour text and it's great. Great. Anyway, there is no way Detective Arm could have written it. Right. If she didn't write it, then who do you propose did? Mr. Justice, of course. Just before dying, he wrote the name of his attacker, Juniper Woods. A final message from your poor subordinate. Poor Mr. Justice, I'm starting to get all misty-eyed. He ain't dead, Jesus. Apollo is not dead, folks. Yeah. So how can you be sure it wasn't Detective Arm who wrote the message? It is very simple. Oh, right. She had struck her head on rubble and died near the courtroom entrance. Time to present... contradiction! Whoosh! You're a terrible liar, Mr. Tonate. Take a look at this autopsy, specifically the part about Detective Arm's head injury. Cause of death: trauma to back of head caused by impact with a flat object. Yes, what about it? Now take a good look at the bloody piece of rubble. Oh god, Yanni. It's sharp and pointed. Oh god. The poor guy fell apart. Hey, you're right, boss. It is pointy. Just like your hair. That is odd, isn't it? What could be the meaning of this contradiction? I believe it means the victim did not hit her head on this piece of rubble. The bloodstain you see is just another fabrication. Its purpose is to mislead us into thinking the victim died near the courtroom entrance. In reality, she died elsewhere. God, what if she died where Apollo's body was? But then was moved? That would actually line up. Yeah, are you claiming the culprit moved the victim's body? That's exactly what I'm claiming. The victim hit her head at some other location. Most likely the floor, or some other flat surface. And this location was somewhere near where the bloody writing was found. In that case, she definitely could have written the message. Your Honour, I have the results of the bloodstain analysis. Ah, very good timing. Let's take a look. According to this report, the message was written in Detective Arm's blood. And as the defense claims, only the parts of the message that were added afterwards were written in Mr. Justice's blood. Aha! It would appear that the defense's assertion is correct after all. A report that proves that the writing was done in Detective Arm's blood. Yes, you did it. You were right, boss. Now I have to drive it home. I'll have to take a good look at the bloody writing analysis later. Oh, this guy's sweaty. Mr. Tonate, it is now apparent that you have told several lies to this court. I hope you have some sort of explanation for yourself. Fine, I will confess. You will? But then why are you so calm? This time I will tell the truth. The whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God. Ow. Alright. the truth. The apparent truth. It is true that Detective Arm wrote my ID number. She very plainly wrote L10015R. I was shocked. But I did not detonate the bomb. Detective Arm must have mistaken me for the real bomber. Not wanting to be accused, I moved the body and covered the writing. My bad. Yeah, okay. I see, so it is your assertion that you merely moved the body, is that it? That is correct. I did not kill Detective Arm. Oh, well, if that's all you did, then... Wait a minute. That in and of itself is a criminal act. Glad to see you finally crossed that finish line, Your Honor. Very well then. Your cross-examination, please, Mr. Wright. Let's fucking do this. The truth. It's true that Detective Arm wrote my ID number. So you admit that you actually did see the bloody writing that Detective Arm left. My bad. I should have said so from the outset. And you were sure it was your ID number? I am sure. It was definitely my ID number. That number was assigned exclusively to me by the police department. The number is assigned to my goggles as well. So those funky things were provided by the police department. Jesus. Although these are special goggles customized by me personally. Speaking of personalized, these sunglasses of mine were custom made as well. They were specially created to be particularly dark and shiny. Speaking of special, my gavel is made of mahogany and was custom made as well. It was specially created to make a particularly loud and resounding sound. Wish I had something to brag about. Be all of that as it may, I just want to reconfirm you saw the bloody writing clearly. And that it was your ID number. That is correct. My ID number was written in blood on the floor. She very plainly wrote L10015. Oh! Ah. So he actually saw the other part of it. We can't see the, what is it? We can't see the R part. Which one would I present though? Apollo's Assault? I'll go with this. I mean, you can make it out on both. Yeah, there. He actually could see that then. Objection! I just want to make doubly sure that L10015R is really what you saw written in blood. Yes, it's very clearly... It very clearly said L10015R. But that's odd, because that's not what I see. What on earth are you blabbing on about now? Wasn't it you who claimed that the bloody writing was his ID number in the first place? Take a good look at the photo in the bloody writing analysis. Now tell me, does it really say L10015R? Uh-ohs. Something is missing, isn't it? And that something is the final R. What is the meaning of this, Mr. Tonate? My bad, I misspoke. Oh right, now I remember. There was no R on the end. It was just a slip of the finger. My bad. Come back, my beautiful contradiction.